You know, when you hear the name Bob Marley, it's like a myth, right? A legend. We tend to think of his genius as, well, just this magical, unexplainable force of nature. But what if I told you it wasn't just magic? What if behind that iconic image there was a system, a really powerful, deliberate philosophy that turns simple music into a weapon for global revolution? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dive into. This is the Marley Rule. Okay, let's just let that sink in. I mean, really picture this. It's December 3rd, 1976. Gunmen storm your home. Your wife, Rita, is shot in the head. Your manager, Don Taylor, is hit 5 times, critically injured. And you take a bullet in your arm, another one grazes your chest. The entire world expects you to just disappear, right? To run, to hide, to cancel the whole thing. It's the only sane thing to do. But 2 days later, Bob Marley walks onto that stage in front of 80,000 people. And he doesn't just play, he shows them his wounds, a living, breathing symbol of defiance. And then he launches into this 90-minute set that becomes the stuff of legend. I mean, talk about unbelievable courage.
So that's the real question here, isn't it? What kind of belief system, what kind of mindset creates that level of courage? Because you see, that moment on stage, that wasn't just some spontaneous act of bravery. No way. It was the result of a deep, systematic philosophy. A belief system so powerful, so ingrained, that it could take a near-death experience and turn it into this absolute, unwavering commitment to his mission. It was proof that everything he'd built was on a foundation that bullets just couldn't break. So what was that system? Well, to get it, we've got to break it down, piece by piece.
All right, so here's our roadmap. We'll start with the shot in the dark, that moment that tested everything. Then we'll go back to where it all began in Forged in Trenchtown. After that, we'll define the Marley Rule itself, look at the rhythmic discipline he used, see the revolution of sound it created, and finally, wrap it all up with the message is the mission. Okay, section 1, the shot in the dark. This was a pivotal moment of commitment. And to really get it, we have to go back to that night. See, this wasn't some random act of violence. Jamaica in the 70s was being torn apart by political warfare. Marley was this huge unifying figure, and his Free Smile Jamaica concert, it was meant to cool things down. But, you know, some people thrive on chaos, not unity. So the attack was absolutely calculated. It was designed to shut him up, to scare him into silence. It was the ultimate test.
And his response, it's just legendary. He said, "The people who are trying to make this world worse are not taking a day off. How can I?" I mean, just think about that for a second. That one sentence tells you everything you need to know about his mindset. For him, getting shot wasn't a reason to stop. It was absolute proof that he had to keep going, that his work was more important than ever. It cemented this conviction that his real power wasn't just making songs. It was about systematically pushing back against all that chaos with a message of pure, unwavering unity. This was the moment his entire philosophy was forged in fire.
All right, section 2, Forged in Trenchtown, the origins of his unifying mission. Because let's be real, that kind of conviction doesn't just appear overnight. To really get it, we have to go back. We have to go to Trenchtown, the government housing project in Kingston where he grew up. This was a place of incredible hardship, suffocating poverty, but also of amazing cultural energy and music. It was the crucible that shaped his entire view of the world.
So his youth was marked by poverty, but also this real crisis of racial identity. As the son of a Black Jamaican mother and a white English father who was mostly gone, Marley felt like an outsider, a half-caste, as they'd say, in a world that was constantly telling him to pick a side. And that struggle, that fueled this incredible drive to find a purpose, a mission. He wasn't just trying to survive, he was trying to turn his own personal pain into some kind of universal message. And he found the answer when he embraced the Rastafari movement. This was huge. It gave him a spiritual and political framework, a way to understand the oppression, what he called the Babylon system, that he saw everywhere. And it taught him that the only way to fight back wasn't with violence, but with a message of unity, justice, and truth. And that was it. That was the turning point. Music was no longer just a passion. It was now the weapon for his mission.
Okay, section 3, and this is the absolute heart of it, the Marley Rule, a blueprint for revolution through rhythm. And I want to be super clear here. This wasn't some vague, artistic feeling. It was a systematic, repeatable blueprint for creating real change, a philosophy with 3 clear, actionable principles, designed for one thing: revolution through rhythm. So
At the very center of the Marley Rule is this one core belief: music is a weapon. Not a weapon of violence, of course, but a spiritual and political one. It's designed to sneak past all our intellectual defenses and connect right with the human heart. Think about it like this. The rhythm was the delivery system, and the message was the payload. And he built his whole career on 3 core mandates that made this weapon just devastatingly effective. Okay, first up is the Subtractive Beat Mandate. Now, Marley and the Wailers, they were masters of simplicity. I mean, just think of a song like One Love. That one-drop rhythm, it's hypnotic, it's primal, it's so deceptively simple that it pulls you in before you even know what's happening. And this was no accident. He systematically stripped the rhythm down to its absolute core. See, he knew that a complex beat might impress a few other musicians, but a simple, powerful beat, that could cross borders, cultures, and languages. It was a very deliberate strategy of subtraction, not addition. The goal was to create this universal, hypnotic foundation that anyone, anywhere on Earth could feel in their bones.
Principle number 2 was the message as product mandate. Just imagine the pressure on this guy as his fame went global. The record labels are screaming for hits, right? More love songs, more party tracks, anything to sell more records. But Marley just refused. He understood that his product wasn't the music, it was the message of Rastafari, of unity, of resistance. And he would not, under any circumstances, water that down for money. I mean, a song like Redemption Song, that's not a pop single, that's a sermon. And that uncompromising stance is what gave his music that incredible power and authenticity. People knew he meant every single word. The message wasn't just in the product, the message was the product.
And that brings us to the third principle, the anti-violence protocol. Remember, Marley lived in a world of intense political violence. He saw it every day. Heck, he was a victim of it. And yet his rule was absolute. A true, lasting revolution could never happen with guns and fists. It had to come from a spiritual and artistic transformation. So what did he do? He took all the anger, all the aggression from his environment, and he channeled it straight into his art. A song like Get Up, Stand Up is a powerful call to action for sure, but it's a call for a revolution of the mind and spirit, not of the sword. And that was a truly radical idea for a really radical time. All right, section 4, the rhythmic discipline, returning philosophy into daily practice. Because look, having a powerful philosophy is one thing, but how do you actually live it day in and day out, especially when you're dealing with global fame and constant threats? Well, that's where the discipline comes in. Marley had this intense, systematic daily practice, habits and routines all designed to enforce his clarity, both artistically and spiritually.
And you can really break it down into 2 core systems that just fed into each other. First, you had his musical practice, the daily composition and rhythmic lock. And second, you had his personal spiritual practice, the spiritual and communal anchor. And together, these 2 things made sure his art was always structurally simple and, at the same time, spiritually pure. So let's break down that first system. For Bob Marley, writing music wasn't some mystical thing where you wait for inspiration to strike. No. It was a daily routine. It was non-negotiable, like breathing. He was always composing, and the Wailers were in a state of pretty much constant rehearsal. And the whole point of this relentless practice was to achieve what they called rhythmic lock. They would just drill those simple one-drop beats again and again and again until it was an unbreakable second-nature foundation. The band literally became a single rhythmic organism. And it was that discipline that created the solid hypnotic structure needed to hold up the raw passion and fire of his lyrics.
And the second system was the spiritual and communal anchor. This was basically his defense against the poison of fame. He systematically stuck to his Rastafari principles. I mean, his home at 56 Hope Road, it wasn't some fancy mansion. It was a communal hub. The doors were always open. The place was always full of musicians, friends, family. He had daily spiritual reflection, reasoning sessions, reading. This wasn't just about what he believed. It was a practical, daily system for staying clear and focused. It's what kept him grounded and made sure his message always came from a place of real, authentic conviction. It protected him from the absolute madness of being a global superstar.
Okay, section 5, a revolution of sound. From local phenomenon to global ambassador. So what happens when you systematically apply rhythm and message like this? Well, you get nothing short of a global revolution in both sound and consciousness. He took a local Jamaican sound, reggae, and through this incredibly disciplined system, he turned it into a universal language of hope and resistance. And this comparison here, it just shows you the sheer scale of his transformation. Before the Marley Rule, he was a ghetto youth in Trenchtown. After, a global ambassador. He went from being a local Jamaican artist to an influencer of world politics. I mean, he famously got two warring political leaders to join hands on stage. His own personal struggle became the symbol for universal justice. He didn't just stay a musician, he became the founder of a movement.
And that really speaks to his incredible long-term impact. See, Bob Marley didn't just make reggae popular, he institutionalized it. He made it a permanent go-to tool for empowerment all over the world. From the townships of South Africa during apartheid all the way to protests happening today, his simple rhythms and powerful words became, and they still are, the soundtrack for liberation. He literally created a timeless blueprint for how to create a revolution with rhythm.
And this brings us to our final section. The message is the mission. This is the universal lesson of the Marley Rule. So beyond the music, beyond the legend, what's the big lesson here? What can we actually take away from this and apply to our own work, our own missions, our own lives?
It really boils down to this incredibly powerful two-part formula. First, simplify your output. Get it down to its essential core. Because in a world that is just drowning in noise and complexity, simplicity is a genuine superpower. It just cuts through everything. But simplicity by itself isn't enough. That's just minimalism. The second, and absolutely crucial step, is to charge that simple output with an uncompromised moral purpose. That's the engine. That combination of authenticity and a clear mission, that's the force that truly connects with people and breaks down every barrier.
So as we wrap this up, let's just recap the core truths that Bob Marley built his entire legacy on. He showed us that the highest purpose of art isn't just entertainment. It can be a genuine force for social change. We saw how the Marley Rule gave him a systematic blueprint for that revolution through rhythm, fusing the simplest forms, like that one-drop beat, with a deep spiritual or moral truth. And in the end, he proved that true, unshakable authenticity, well, it might just be the most powerful thing there is.
And it all connects back to that one ultimate rule that guided his entire life. It's a principle that goes way beyond music, way beyond art. It applies to anything worth doing. The message should be the mission.